APMNation.com.
Previously on Angry Drunk Tales.
Be angry. Me write angry emails.
Episode 15. You might think I'm crazy.
Me still angry. Me continue to write long, rambling, drunken emails. Me continue to be angry over incident several weeks ago. Me have emotional intelligence of 5-year-old child. Me bitter and frustrated with myself over being drunken 300-pound tub of shit. Me undiagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. Me son of a bitch! Me write angry emails. Me hate everyone.
Welcome to Angry Drunk Tales. It's episode 15. I'm Matt Connerton.
And I am the Honorable Jen Coffey.
And when we last left off, a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Son of a bitch!
And I had been emailing back and forth, and it looked like the tone of
son of a bitch!
emails was beginning to soften a little bit. And he was shifting the blame to Angela more so than Jesse. I think a part of him deep down in his cold heart actually did have a tiny, at least maybe for a moment, a tiny bit of remorse over Jesse feeling like he had to leave. Maybe. At least that's what I was hoping at the time. And so he wanted to talk face to face, finally. So I said, okay. And this was very late at night, of course. And I was tired, but I wanted to get this done. And I really had hope. That this would be it. He and I could talk and clear the air. And I'm really good in those situations anyway. So, I thought this is it. We're gonna talk and it's gonna be good. Maybe. But I said it's at least worth a shot. So I went out to his rumpus room there. He, of course, is kind of stumbling around a little bit. He's obviously, drunk, as usual. And just kind of put all the cards on the table. He's telling me why he felt upset and whatever. We talked for about 90 minutes, I think, total.
How many beers was that?
Well, I didn't have any, of course, but he definitely opened a couple, 2 or 3 during that conversation. You actually woke up and came out at one point, and I
went to the bathroom and I went back to my room.
We've never really talked about what was going through your mind when you got up and you saw him and I actually talking. I remember you looked kind of annoyed.
It wasn't annoyed.
But it was hard to read.
It wasn't an annoy as much as it was like all of a sudden my stomach jumped into my throat and thought, oh, now what? And just wanted to go to the bathroom and go back to bed and hope that there wasn't yet something else that I was going to wake up to.
Right.
And at this point, I had made it a habit of pretty much consistently always having my headset on, either listening to music or watching a program or something to just be away from any sounds in the home.
Yes. So, son of a bitch! Vibe face-to-face was much different than in the emails. It was much more like the son of a bitch I was used to. He didn't come across as angry. He seemed, he actually did kind of seem like he felt badly about everything. He told me that you were his favorite roommate. He actually did.
What a lying piece of shit.
He actually did express a tiny bit of concern over how you were feeling, but not much.
That doesn't surprise me. It surprised me that he showed any concern.
But he did express, how much he liked you. He,
He's a very good liar.
yeah, he, but he seemed like he felt badly about the whole thing, but, and in that 90 minutes, he talked a lot and he jumped around a bit. I didn't talk too much, but he's a much more of a natural talker and rambler than I am. Basically what the place that I tried to get to with him is, it was obvious that he was never going to take any responsibility directly, but what I said to him multiple times, I said, my perception of things is this: there was alcohol involved, and when there's alcohol involved, misunderstandings happen. And I said this, why do you think fights happen in bars? Because when there's alcohol involved, misunderstandings happen between people that would never occur if there were not alcohol involved. Somebody says something to somebody else and they take it wrong and it turns into this whole big thing. And that's why bouncers end up having to carry people out or toss people out the door. Because when there's alcohol involved, misunderstandings happen and things are said that people either don't mean or are taken the wrong way, and it escalates into a whole big ridiculous conflict. And I said, that's what happened that night, even though nothing physical happened that night. Certainly, there was no physical violence, just to be clear. But when there's alcohol involved, and I said, son of a bitch! Everybody was drinking, you were drinking, they were drinking. So, of course, a misunderstanding happened. And I said, you and Jesse were having two different conversations and you were talking past each other, which happens not only with alcohol, but you see it all the time in politics, where people can't have a productive dialogue because they're having two different conversations and they're just talking past each other. And that's what was happening with you and Jesse. And he was not saying what you think he was saying. And he was not necessarily understanding your concern about what he was saying. So, although, I mean, to be fair, with what I saw of that conflict when I interceded, Jesse was being pretty reasonable, and like I said, there was alcohol involved, but it didn't appear to me. Jesse did not appear drunk to me, whereas son of a bitch clearly was. But in the moment when I'm talking to son of a bitch, and I'm trying to get him to understand that he had some fault in this, without coming out and saying it directly, because he's just going to reject that, because he can't ever be wrong about anything ever. So I just tried to reason with him, and it seemed like he sort of got it. And, of course, he told me the story, the same one he talked about in the email, why he's so paranoid, why he gets worried, because he had these guys living in his house for 3 months, and one of them sent him to the hospital because he was kicking him in the head and all this. He told me that whole story. You already heard it in the email. He's telling me all this stuff. He's telling me all this stuff about his family, how awful his family treated him, both growing up and as an adult, and that comes up later in these emails, by the way. He told me all this stuff, and, and some of it, assuming it was true, was pretty heartbreaking. But at this point, I have no idea what's true and what this guy just imagines. I really don't. But I did feel genuinely badly about like some of the stuff he told me about his family growing up and whatnot. At the time, I took him at his word, and I did feel genuinely badly for him. But the main idea here was to just try to get him to see that there wasn't just his side to it, and try to just get past it and just get over it. So we talked for about 90 minutes total, and at the end of it, we shook hands. We looked each other in the eyes, and, we were both like, I'm really glad we talked. And, he did express, by the way, that he wanted to talk to you at some point. Actually, I think he said he was hoping to talk to you the next day. And that's a pertinent piece of information, because this was on a Saturday. I think this was 1 week. This must have been 1 week after the original incident. So this was because this was also on a Saturday. I remember that distinctly. Oh, maybe it was on a Sunday, actually. No, I'm sorry. It was 8 days after. It was on a Sunday. And that's significant. I'll explain why in a minute. But so we both went to bed that night. I thought, okay, we are finally over the worst of this. And things will we can begin to heal. But one thing that was kind of left up in the air was
optimist in you.
yes. Well, I mean, but it did genuinely seem like okay. He's still not really taking responsibility, but he's not being a prick about it either, and he seems to be over his anger. You know, and I think it helped that I kept saying, I understand your side of it. I do. You know, if I'd come home and someone had unplugged something of mine without asking me, I would have been mad too. And by the way, actually, I would have. The difference being, I would have processed it and gotten over it.
Oh, you mean like when you came home and I said to you, oh, I borrowed your speakers. I unplugged them from your computer and plugged them into mine. I hope you don't mind. And you were like, no, that's fine. And I asked you if you wanted them back, and you were like, no, keep listening, you know, because I respected you, and
right.
It was your stuff, and I was, just saying, hey, I did this, and I hope it's okay.
Yeah.
We had a normal conversation.
Right. Well, I do understand, though.
Son of a bitch!
Like, him coming home and finding Jesse had unplugged something of his.
Now that part always bothered me because we were standing there when they were setting everything up, and he was saying, oh, you can do this anytime, and he was even showing them like how things worked, and actually that we had already previously used the projector because
right.
we had watched the movie Idiocracy together.
Right. But the thing is, if that bothered him, if anything there bothered him, because he's always talking about how he's an adult,
son of a bitch,
this is this mature adult. If that bothered him, he should have. Oh, this is something that came up during his summit with me. That I told him, if something bothered you,
son of a bitch,
why couldn't you? I said, first of all, you could have just said something to Jesse, and he would have been very respectful.
Right. An interesting thing to point out, though, at this point is, in the meantime, before Jesse had left, every time he saw it,
son of a bitch,
he would say hi to him, say,
right.
how are you doing? How is work today? He was trying to have conversations with them, and
son of a bitch
would just, ignore him and walk on by. So he would never accept the invitation to actually say, I wouldn't have gotten so mad if you hadn't unplugged my shit without asking me first.
Right.
And in which case, I know my kid enough to know he would have went, dude, I'm sorry. And, won't happen again.
Right.
It would have been a no big deal conversation. It would have been over in less than 2 minutes.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Son of a bitch!
Tries to have it both ways with that. Oh, no one came and talked to me about my feelings, but then whenever Jesse would say hi to him when
son of a bitch
was walking through it,
son of a bitch
would just blow him off. So he tries to have it both ways.
Right. And there's even greater evidence to that
Very childish.
after this summit
yeah.
you have.
Oh yeah. But the other thing I really kept telling him, though, when he and I were talking is, why didn't you just, I said, you could have said something to Jesse, or if you felt disrespected in any way, or if anything was going on here that you were uncomfortable with, you could have come to Jen and I, or one of us or both of us, however you felt most comfortable, and just said something about it, and we could have had a discussion about it, and it would have been addressed, and we would have fixed it, whatever the problem was. Simple as that. We're not unreasonable people, and we're very easygoing. It's not like we would have been offended if
son of a bitch
they'd come to us and said, yeah, we really need to keep that room cleaner or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Whatever it was that was bothering him, and it would have been addressed like adults, and simple. Absolutely. Really that simple. And I kept telling
son of a bitch,
I was like, I just wish you had said something to us. And none of this had to happen. And he seemed to, in the moment, he seemed to get it. So that was our big summit. I mean, I'm leaving out a lot, but a lot of it's just repetitive, and a lot of it I don't remember. So we had that big discussion, and I finally thought everything was better, although I also knew we weren't out of the woods, because the final piece of that puzzle, this is what I was thinking at that point, the final piece of the puzzle was going to be
son of a bitch
and you having a conversation.
Right.
And I knew that was going to be much more difficult, because obviously you were going to be emotional over the Jesse aspect of it. And so I had no idea how that was going to go.
Perspective, I had an awful lot of shit going on right then and there.
Right.
Too much shit on my plate.
Right.
And the last thing I needed was a douche added on top of it.
Yeah. So that was July 4th. And then now I'm a little confused on something here. I've got an email also from July 4th from you to...
Son of a bitch!
Was this earlier in the day and I'm just looking at these out of order? Because there's an email here from you to...
Son of a bitch!
Saying, thank you for taking what little I had left from me. I never did anything to you.
Yep, that was an email that was during the time period of him continuously degrading my son.
Okay.
Making comments, constantly degrading my son, refusing to look me in the eye, refusing to acknowledge my existence, and I just had enough. So yes, I did write an email, and I did lay it all out.
Okay.
About how disgusted I was with his treatment, how I was disheartened and heartbroken by his lack of what I thought was a friend, just not caring, to send emails like that to me in the hospital, to not acknowledge me, to not even give me the time of day, to give me a couple of, he talks about he needed a few days to calm down and not be angry. Well, I needed a few days to get the fuck out of the hospital.
Right.
So that was pretty much where that email came from.
For some reason, it's just showing up out of order. I don't know why, because that was obviously before
Son of a bitch!
and I talked. So that was from earlier that day. Oh, so maybe that was part of what made him willing to at least talk, because that was from that same day, July 4th.
Right.
That must have been early in the day, and maybe that email actually did get to him a little bit.
I guess it was a sad attempt to appeal to his humanity that I thought he had, but didn't realize he lacked.
Right. And then we will finish. I have a very long email from him following up our summit.
I believe that should be the next episode.
Well, but we haven't really done a dramatic reading in this episode.
Oh, but that's true.
So let's finish. This is actually a good way to finish off the week, because this is Friday's show, and this is a long email.
You gave your synopsis of what you felt you walked away from your summit.
Right.
And in fairness, we should apply Saint Eduardo the same thing and give him his synopsis of the summit.
Right, as he expresses in this very long email. By the way, pay attention to everything he says in this email, because a lot of this... Now, this email, in a way, comes across sort of positive. But there's a lot of foreshadowing in this email, because the positivity will not last for long. But this is a long one, so settle in, kids. I'm going to get my read on. Here we go. This was, and by the way, this was the next morning after our summit. I felt good about us talking, and I felt like you finally saw how I ended up feeling this last week. I finally felt like you saw it from my perspective from that whole thing. Yes, I was drinking that night, but I also am not the only one who said things that needed to be explained. At the end of the day, I simply decided to be an adult in the room. But what still bothered by those comments that were made. I felt good about where it went, and in all honesty, I was not bothered by Jesse living here at all. All I was asking was for some consideration and respect. I don't think that's a lot to ask for. Those comments made me feel disrespected and made me question what would happen the next time we had an issue together. That's all, nothing more. I am not an unreasonable person, and I know that I am not an
Napoleon Bonaparte
in any way. But I have repeatedly been compared to him. Sorry, but I feel I deserve some respect. I have been through shit that no one else in this house has ever been through. I have been at the top and at the bottom. I have lived in houses where I was the only white guy. I have lived in those black projects that most people make fun of, and I have been the recipient of great kindness from many non-whites and such. At the end of the day, I have lived a life based upon having as many experiences as I can have, because I still believe, as I did when I was a teenager, that real wealth comes from experience, collecting experiences. Only through that will you ever understand others or yourself. That remains my goal to this day. And only through sharing similar experiences can you be empathetic to others. So living in the projects and living in houses with blacks, Mexicans, and such, and even working on ranches for shit money, I learned to respect others different from me. Living with the homeless, I learned their struggles as well. I try to be much more sympathetic soul all the time, to see from someone else's side. And that's what I write about, too. I am not asking for much here. I simply know that I've been through a lot more than most people in my life, and I recognize Jen has too in many ways. But her battles have been on the health sort, where mine have been survival. The lack of self-awareness to even write a statement like that.
I don't know, surviving cancer twice. I don't know.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt my own dramatic reading, but my God, let me just read that again. And I recognize Jen has too in many ways, but her battles have been of the health sort, where mine have been survival. What kind? How? Yes, battling cancer has nothing to do with surviving.
No.
What a bizarre thing to say. What? That's bizarre even for him.
Hearing it again, it's comical. It's comically sick that okay.
Yeah. Well, you were out there fighting your cancer. I was trying to survive.
That's right. I lived with the homeless.
I was trying to survive living with homeless people. You just had a little
and what's
cancer
with all
to deal
the
with.
Racist stuff? I mean, what does it matter?
Well, he's
who you lived with. I mean,
well,
he's
no.
trying to paint himself as being some, I don't know, martyr, whatever. But it's like, you know what? If you're really somebody who only sees individuals and doesn't see races or ethnicity, you don't even raise it in the conversation.
Yeah, he's very that's a theme with him. He's always trying to prove how not racist he is.
Yeah, I mean,
which I do believe he's not. I don't think he's racist at all.
That'd be like running around going, well, this is so and so my Hispanic friend, and this is so and so my atheist friend, and this is come on,
it's another thing he hyper focuses on. All right, so now that we've established that that your issues have nothing to do with surviving, we'll continue on.
Correct.
I have been to the top over and over again. Was once even offered my own cooking show, by the way, in Nashville. And some of my bottoms have been of my own creation, too, as I sought to find out more about myself and such. My voyages of self-discovery are over now, I think. Except I still want to hike through the Appalachian Trail at some point in my life. And having reliable roommates might make that a doable thing for me in the next few years, by the way. So that weighs on my mind a lot, as it's always been basically the one big thing on my bucket list that I haven't done type thing. All I am asking for is to see it from my side. That doesn't mean taking sides. You can still say I'm an asshole after. But do as I try to do all the time. And why I shut my door for 4 days, by the way. I tried to see those comments from their side. But even then I couldn't get it. That's not the way I was raised to think about society and dealing with other people and such. You know, maybe one day you will read my books, and then maybe you might get some idea of how I think. Of course, as proud as I am of 14 Other Ways, by the way, I had numerous college professors proof it and help me edit. 4 of them, in fact, who all felt it was amazing. Basically, the progressive argument to Ayn Rand, by the way. A few of my employees who read it when I was managing a restaurant thought I was crazy after reading it. I still think that as a first effort, it's very good. And I know several people, teachers and professors, who think it's amazing.
Amazingly never published.
You really want to know what's important to me, how I feel and think about things? I have included my first book, which is actually my second. My first, I had a writing partner who ended up not seeing things my way. So the one this once was meant to be a prologue for, I've been trying to rewrite, but it's basically too late now. When you read this, you might see it as prophetic, by the way. But do when I reread it, And that's why it's hard for me to continue this material now. I look at it and describing a path we are on, and when I look at it scares me. I wrote this nearly 5 years ago, and everything in it rings true as hell now. The entire project started less than a year after Obama got elected. And at that time, I came up with a single line in my mind. The audacity of hope was soon destroyed by the cynicism of the times. To my knowledge, I was the very first to type that phrase down. Or the notion of how having bin Laden on the loose served political gains for another administration. I personally think W never wanted to get bin Laden because it was his boogeyman for America. It served him well to keep scaring us with him and such. This material is very, very political, philosophical, and religious. It offends a lot of people. I am giving you a warning before you even read it. You will either come away from it with some new ideas or you will think I'm 100% crazy. Either way, I don't mind. I know who I am. By the way, the title means something. Besides it being a reference to one of my favorite songs, done by a local band, 14 Other Ways to Die, but dying inside is the worst way to go. For a long time in my life, I felt dead inside. Didn't care for anyone or anything, including myself. Had experienced too much trauma. The song meant a lot to me, and those words inspired me in many ways. And when I told my soon-to-be ex-writing partner at the time my intention with this material, that I was going to have 14 major characters die in individual ways before the major event happened, he said that that was too much. But I wanted to make it a point of life about it, not death. A point about how we should live our lives. Not to be scared of the inevitable and to live each day like it's our last. In my life, I've had a number of days that were very nearly my last. So that idea was important to me. And at the risk of sounding crazy as hell to you, I also have experienced premonitions in my own life. When I speak of living in a rooming house in Nashville with a bunch of black people in a black neighborhood, I felt okay doing it because just a few nights earlier, I had a dream that would happen. I even had seen all those people in my dream. You can call me crazy for that. Whatever, but it happened. And over my life, I have had many such dreams. It's one reason I keep my TV on at night, so I can avoid those dreams. I don't believe in God, but I do believe something happens to our spirit when we die. And I'm pretty sure I get warnings and such from my dead father. Don't tell me how I know this. It's not something I could ever explain. But I have had way too many dreams in my life. Either serve to protect me or serve to tell me the right path I should take. And I know it has nothing to do with God. But at the same time, I am reasonably certain it's my dead father telling me something in spirit. I am not religious, but I am spiritual. I am 30% Lakota. And I believe deeply in ancestry and spirits of the dead, helping out the living when they can, and when we listen. Call me crazy for that. I don't really care. I don't believe in God or heaven, but I do think some of our souls remain after we are gone. It's what I believe, and I only believe that because of things my grandmom used to tell me, who was also an atheist but believed in similar things. And my own experience of having been shown things before they occurred. The first time I set out hitching across country was not really by choice. I got fucked over by someone and robbed. I was either going to be homeless in South Cali or thumb and make my way back east. You know what, though? That experience ended up being one of the greatest times of my life. I had fun. It was transformative for me. I found out who I was as a young person, Jesse's age. And at the end of it, I ended up being able to take that newly gained confidence and knowings of self to become one of the best chefs in Nashville. and being offered my own cooking show and such. That's no lie. That's the truth. I was rated 4.5 stars. My restaurant was, and my NAE? And my name, again, he was drunk at this point, and my name was in Sports Illustrated as the favorite chefs of the owner of the Nashville Predators. I was 24, I think, hard to remember now, and the owner of the restaurant offered me $120K per year to sign a 10-year contract. No joke. That happened in my life. I was one of the best chefs in the 7th largest city in the country. Believe it or not, that's me. But that was not the be-all and end-all of my life either. Since then, I've had my name in papers in Portland, Maine, Manchester, New Hampshire, Boston, Mass, Palm Beach, and many other places. There's something in my life I am ashamed of, because I know very few people who can ever match my accomplishments of my experiences. So when I feel disrespected, it bothers me. Oh, I'm sorry, there is nothing in my life I'm ashamed of. That's what it was. Wait, wrote it through me. That first hitchhiking journey ended after was staying with a couple who was also hitching and having MFM relations for 3 days. I realized I had to keep going and get somewhere. But that day I got picked up by a guy who scared the hell out of me. His back seat was full of porn mags, and he kept saying he wouldn't leave until I let him suck my dick. Seriously creepy, dude. By the way, to this day is why I say I don't need a gun to protect myself. A mind is far more dangerous than a gun. When he said that, I put on my seatbelt. When he said he wouldn't let me out of the car, I took my left foot, planted it on the gas pedal, grabbed the steering wheel, and promised that I was going to steer us into traffic. He very quickly offered to let me out of the car after that. To this day, if you think you can scare me, guess what? Not going to happen. I've seen death about a dozen times in my life, and I'm not the least bit scared about the prospect of getting beat up. This is who I am. If someone thinks they can fuck me over, guess what? It's been tried before. I survive everything. I have guns aimed and fired at me, knives put at my throat, hurricanes, tornadoes, starvation, and deserts. 2 weeks in the hospital where the doctors told me I should call my family and ask them to make arrangements because I had an unyet known strain of MSRI.
It's called MRSA, is what I think he's trying to
MRSA,
say,
okay, I know what that is. Okay.
Which is... Never mind.
I have faced death numerous times. I am simply not scared of it anymore. So if anyone thinks I am scared of anything, well, guess what? They are a fool. I have been homeless and survived and come back stronger for it. Everything that would kill most people has made me a better person in every way. So I refuse to apologize for who and what I am now. All right. That was a very long email. A lot of foreshadowing in that. Again, he's being nice. Things are friendly at this point.
No, he's nice, but he's not nice. It's a back and forth message. It's a give a little dig, take a little, give a little dig, take a little.
But compared to what we were getting at this point, and again, this was right after our summit.
It was tamer.
I was feeling actually pretty good at this point. But there's foreshadowing in here that obviously, because it's foreshadowing, I didn't know at the time what it really meant. Like this thing about no one can scare me, no one can fuck me over. Some of that paranoia is creeping in, and that shows up later. There were other things, too, that will show up later in our story.
I don't
know. There's so much here.
There's so much to it. And, I can't tell you the number of deaths I attended, unfortunately, as a medical provider. It's not something I would brag to somebody about.
Right.
It's something that transcends healthcare into a different level that you don't. I mean, those kind of conversations are the kind of conversations I've had with other healthcare providers because it's a special kind of a thing to deal with. He's taking basically, and really, I guess I kind of wonder, this question never really popped into my mind, but who the hell turns down a 10-year contract for over $100K when they're 24 years old? How much of an idiot do you need to be to walk away from that kind of a contract? I think it's fake. I think it's made up BS.
It probably is made up. I mean, I actually disagree with your premise, though, about you'd be a fool to turn that down. I mean, we would have to know more about what's in the contract. All we know, assuming it is, let's pretend for a minute that it is real. If it is real, all we know is that it was for $120K and it was
at the age of 24,
contract.
and it was a 10-year contract.
At the age of 24,
for a cook. Yeah, no, not buying it.
A chef in a fancy restaurant. It actually, I don't find it as implausible, but it is coming from a crazy person, so it's probably not true. But if you're 24 years old, do you really want to sign anything that's going to have you locked up for 10 years? And if you're,
I don't know. I think it depends. Well, yeah, you're right. It depends on the scenario. It depends on.
Maybe there were out clauses. I don't know, but Jesus Christ. I mean, I don't know if I would take that deal, because if you're in a situation where someone's offering you that much money, you're probably in demand enough where. Well, shit,
I don't need a 10-year contract. Right. You can get that kind of money without it.
Right. I could go somewhere else.
I could see that argument. Yeah. Absolutely. No, that makes sense.
But I have a surprise. I've been holding back on this. Okay, that's bullshit. I haven't been holding back on this. I forgot about it. But angry, drunk tales. Even if
son of a bitch,
because we've been speculating that
son of a bitch
may have finally stopped emailing us. But even if he has, it doesn't matter.
Nope.
Because guess what I have?
What do you have?
The book he was talking about?
Yes.
It's attached to that email.
It is.
I have the book he was talking about. I'm going to read
son of a bitch
his book. But I'm going to read it during the show.
Absolutely.
So
and then you can judge for yourself, like he says, whether he's right or he's crazy.
Yes.
And if any of his emails are an indicator of his writing quality in that book,
yeah,
I'm going to have to make sure that we're strategic about it.
I wonder, like, if he has,
I'll end up in a fit laughing.
Like he has like one of the main characters, At the end of the day, this character ended up dying because at the end of the day, this is one of the 14 characters and such.
And you can call us the assholes for authoring at the end of the day that this person died.
You can call me an asshole, by the way. But at the end of the day, it's my book. So that's why this character dies in this scene.
It's interesting to note how he says he had a writing partner, but he couldn't see things his way.
Oh, God, I can only imagine what that conflict was about. But again...
But it shows a consistent theme. If you're not in 100% agreement with St. Eduardo,
you might think I'm crazy.
Are evil incarnate, and all these paranoid and invisible things start to happen to you, or perhaps to him in his dreams, as he notes. He dreams things and then they happen.
Yes.
So perhaps he was dreaming of things that he was perceiving was going to happen.
Yes.
Maybe that's an explanation. I don't know. I don't have a psych major.
Yeah.
I'm a business major. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But so that finishes out this week. So we are at this keeps working out well as far as timing, because when we come back on Monday with next week's episodes, believe me, this little detente does not last long, my friends. And we end up right back where we were, only it just gets worse and crazier. So we got a lot left to go.
We certainly do.
Here on the Edward Chronicles. So I guess that's a good cliffhanger.
Do you have a drunken, belligerent roommate? No?
No, it's yes, our new tagline. We have to get this down. No, it's if you have a drunken, belligerent roommate, do you feel safe?
I didn't.
Good night.
Good night.
IPMNation.com